We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Everybody, please have everybody sign in if they haven't, like by now. We appreciate it. Welcome everybody. Welcome those online as well. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to do a moment of silence, and then we're going to play the national anthem tonight for veterans. We do honor the veterans. Start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to have a little moment of silence from veterans. Thank you. Happy birthday. Thank you. Next, we have the spotlight of success. Spotlight of success.
Yes, I would like to invite Brian Shepard and then Mark Yoder. Brian contacted me a couple weeks ago now and said they were getting some data from their first round of testing back already on their new CKLA curriculum, and they wanted to share that with me. And I said, why don't you share this with the board and with our community as well? And then we called Mark. They haven't done their first checkpoint test yet, but they're getting great reviews from staff and students. So they put a video together that we'll watch. And so I'm going to turn it over to this crew and let them share.
First of all, thank you for having us tonight. Science of reading has been challenging, probably the most challenging thing for me. It would be simple to just write it out the last couple of years, but no, you need to get better daily, and they've taken on the challenge of getting better. When you go to a classroom now, you look for 5 basic things, the 5 essential components of a reading lesson. Everything comes to a literacy lens. I've talked to Mr. Lau about making all of those choices through that lens. Our focus is reading. That's what we're here to do, to get better at reading now. So every focus comes through that lens. So I'll let Mrs. Sitch speak to how we're doing. I enjoy going to the classrooms. I'm on my about 8th round now. So I'm there to monitor. I'm there to praise, and I'm there to look at how we can get better. Never worry about getting to be the best. It's always better just to get better daily. So that's what we're after. So let Mrs. Sitch speak to that. And then Mrs. Kaiser will come up, and Miss Hannah. They volunteered to do this, kind of. So we've enjoyed it. We thank the board for supporting it because we know it costs a lot. So if there's a lot of money behind it, we need to get after it.
Hi, Danielle Sitz. I'm the instructional coach at the primary, and like Mr. Shepherd said, we know that this was a last-minute decision. We know it was expensive, but we just want to show you the progress that we have seen already in just this little amount of time that we've been implementing CKLA. So it's our language arts program. Our teachers and our students have been working so hard. There's so much going on behind the scenes when they're at home with their planning, especially with the knowledge part and the content that they have to learn before they deliver that instruction. So today we just really want to celebrate the things that we've been seeing because of their hard work. So Miss Hannah Kindergarten, she's going to talk about the skills, which is like our phonics. So it's our phonics program, and she's had some celebrations with her data. So we do some data log meetings in which we're looking at, how effective is our instruction in our Tier 1 instruction. And then Mrs. Kaiser is going to talk about the knowledge part. And I think the most exciting thing for some of us to see is how excited the teachers have been to teach this. And you're going to see that by some of the pictures that she'll share. So, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you. Like she said, I'm Miss Hannah. I'm a kindergarten teacher at the primary. And so, Mr. Berkey, do you have?
You have the thing right there.
Oh, okay.
That's what everyone's used to.
I've never done this before. I usually sit and watch. Okay. So this is one of our most recent skills assessments tests. And so what we would do is I would say the word net. And then the kids would have to look at number 1 and go through those words and figure out which one says net. And as you can see, some of the sounds of the words that they give have similar sounds. So it's not like always just easy in picking out the correct word. All the words that we give are sounds that we have covered in the classroom that we have taught. We've also taught them how to blend sounds. So take the n and then the e and the t and put them together. N, e, t, net is how we teach it in the classroom. And so when we get to the end of the unit, we give this assessment. And it was very cool and interesting and exciting to see kids work through this assessment, because I would say the word net, and then you would see them look at the first letter, the first one, and if it was n, they kept going and trying to figure out if it was correct or not. And like if we would drop down to number 2, like the word is van, so they went to man and they could tell it wasn't a v. So they went on to the next one, and then fan, it wasn't a v. So they went on to the next one, and it's vet. So they would go v, ah, and then they knew that that wasn't an ah, it's an eh. And so then they went to the last one and they checked the sounds v, ah, n, van. And so then they circled it. We'll see in a little bit. Obviously, not every kid got it right, but the vast majority of them did well. And it was exciting to see them. We're only in the first trimester, and to see them being able to figure out what we call CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words. And so to go through that. If they scored 8 or higher on this test, they did not have to do part 2. That meant that they got the skills that we have taught, they know how to apply the skills we have taught, and so they did not need to go on in testing. Okay, so on part 2, if they had scored 7 or below on the first part, then you went to part 2. And so I would cut these cards apart that have the CVC words on them, and then I would show them one word at a time, and they would have to read the word to me. So for instance, where it says 10, I would show them that card, and they could tell me t, n, or they could read it as 10. And on the other sheet is where I would record what they said and whether they had the correct sounds or not. And they would get a point for each correct sound. So by the time you got done with that testing, then you knew where their area of weakness was. Was it in letter sounds, or was it in the blending of the letter sounds? Because if they scored, and we'll look at that in a little bit, if they scored high enough to get in the green, then you knew that their problem was they needed more work on the blending of the sounds. But if they still scored in red or yellow, then you knew that they needed more work on the letter sounds. So it's nice because it breaks it down to help us focus more on then when we have our intervention time or a small group time in the classroom of where to help these kids specifically at to make them progress through. So if we will look at a sample of the data, this is my class. And so on the first part, you can see the ones that are green, that was that first part of the test where they had to pick out the word. And then yellow means it was probably around 6 or 7, and then 5 and below was red. So you can see I had a lot of greens, but I still had reds, and I still had a couple of yellows. So then those reds and yellows, I gave part 2 to, and then from there I can see where my kids need help. And so like the yellow and the 2 greens, I know their main problem, because that's a high yellow score, so I know their main problem is with blending. So I need to spend more time with those 3 kids on blending. And well, and the 4th one down there, I missed that one. And then the 2 towards the bottom that are still red, that we really need to work on letter sounds. And quite honestly, those that are still red, that didn't surprise me because I know how they perform in the classroom. But yeah, so it was just exciting. Like when I work with them day to day, you think they're getting it, and like, but you're always like, oh, I'm not 100% sure. And so it was exciting to see that when they took the test, that they really did get it, and they were knowing what to do. So does anybody have any questions on that
So
part?
each unit has a test as well.
Yes, yep. And we have a data spreadsheet where we enter all of our test scores on that for each unit. So like just today at Collaboration, we had a data log meeting on this skills 4 and talking about.
So you've talked about your weakness as far as, you know, where to do the special group thing. Has that been working out as far as the special group and then come back and read?
Yes, we haven't, we just gave this test, like, what was it, a week or 2 ago? Like a week ago or something. So we haven't had, you know, like we haven't had enough small group time yet to say, go back and
Sure.
retest. But yes, that is working out.
Any other questions?
Yes.
What do you do when you have like a 6? What types of things do you, like with the blending and the letters, if they're weak on both blending and letters?
So we start out with the letters. We just work on letters. And then like with blending, we will go back to doing just blending 2 sounds together to make sure they can do 2 before we move to 3. In CKLA, they have us teach blending like at, mat. And so because the TPR helps kids get it in their memory. And so we will go back to doing 2, like go, or the oral blending first. Obviously they don't, if they're trying to read those words, they don't know some of those sounds yet, or the rules yet, but doing the oral blending part and making sure they can get that, and working on the letter sounds and making sure, because if they don't have letter sounds, they aren't going to be able, they can blend sounds they might be able to blend sounds together, but they're not going to read the word correctly because they got to have those letter sounds.
Do you have enough time with the students to once you, I like that it's diagnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have enough time if you, with this to remediate the kids or bring them up to the level?
Yeah.
It's so important. If a kid can't read it with confidence,
Right.
by grade 3, it's really tough.
Right, yes. We are working hard at making sure we have enough time. We have an intervention time in our schedule, which like title people pull kids during that time, or EL pull kids during that time to work with them. My assistant will pull kids during that time to work with, and I will pull kids during that time to work with, like in a small group or one-on-one. and the other kids will be at centers. And then also in CKLA, they have built in to some of the lessons a small group time. And so that's also a time for us to go back and reteach that and re-hit those skills for those kids.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Kaiser, and I get to tell you about the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So we have some really tough units, and it's a lot for these little ones to learn and to sit through. So we take wiggle breaks and things like that. But after each unit, what we do is we have a culminating activity, and we get to do some really fun things. So after our unit 2, the human body, we learned about the digestive system, the circulatory system, the muscular, skeletal, and nervous system. So 6 and 7-year-olds learning about all of those things. And they could tell you, you know, about the spinal cord and the cerebrum. They could tell you about the heart and how many bones we have and how many muscles we have. It's amazing. Like, they would sit there for, you know, 20, 30 minutes and listen to you talk about this and explain things that are 2 grade levels above them. Because CKLA in their list, like, this is listening comprehension. So it's 2 grade levels above where they are reading. So it's so much coming in that it's amazing that they can remember it and they can have fun with it, and we get to celebrate at the end. So when we celebrated the human body, they got to put together a skeleton, and that was actually donated from the Ligonier Public Library. We checked it out from them. We got these cute little jackets donated from Parkview. Yeah, I think Parkview Noble, or the health department. Was it the health department?
I don't know.
I'm
I'm learning about
really
it the
nice.
first time.
We also had like different organs that were cut out. We got masks and gloves. The kids got to make a stomach model. Mrs. Hoffmeister put together a heart model. So it was a jar with a balloon, and they got to like pump it and see how the blood flew out of the bowl sometimes. But we made brains with Play-Doh. Like, it was so much fun, and it only took like, I think we each signed up for an hour. So it took the place of our knowledge for that day. And then we went back and we took our test, and we grew a lot. I mean, they did awesome. So we, just like Julie was showing you the spreadsheet with skills, they also are growing so much in their knowledge. It's amazing. And then knowledge 3, we got to get real fancy. It was different lands, similar stories. And so we all dressed up real fancy. You'll see even Mr. Alice is in a suit. So we borrowed some prom dresses, and we talked about different stories. We learned so many different fables and fairy tales from like Botswana, China, Germany, England, Denmark. So we compared the stories during our units. We had 3 stories where somebody lost a shoe: Cinderella, the red slipper girl, and then a boy who lost a shoe, Billy Bay. So it was awesome. So the kids love these stories. And then to be able to dress up, we learned how to waltz from Mrs. Van Dyne. And we had hors d'oeuvres, which are very small snacks, not large. And the volleyball girls that helped us out, they were our servants. So they served the hors d'oeuvres. So it doesn't take long, like in your day, to fit this stuff in, but you know, it takes some planning beforehand. But we've worked together really well as a team, and the kids have absolutely loved it. So I feel like this is what they're living for. The very first one we did, it was nice outside, so we did Fables Olympics, and we can send you pictures of those. But the kids really enjoyed those. We listened to stories about the fox and the grapes, and the noisy house, and the boy who cried wolf. So lots of life lessons being taught through these stories, and we just are having fun celebrating them.
So it's fair to say the other curriculum hadn't done something like this, and you guys did talk a lot about
the other curriculum. I would equate it to, like, I don't know. It
it didn't have the knowledge to this
It was
extent.
cute little stories, and these are like knowledge that is going to help. When we went over and saw the elementary, it was like, oh my goodness, like this is going to be amazing because they're going to remember what we taught them. And even if they forget half of what we taught them, they're still going to have a better foundation than what we were sending them over with before. So they've got the knowledge. So even names and things like that, like they're able to sound things out because they at least have a little bit of knowledge of, oh, I remember hearing something about that. So that knowledge base is huge.
Any questions, Jeff?
I just love it. I just love that you're doing a knowledge base that gives them hooks, ladders that they can use later on. They can apply this stuff. And I want to go to your class.
Well, you can come.
I really do. It's one of those things where sometimes we talk about school. When you got school, it's a little boring sometimes. That's not boring. Like,
Makes you
just
excited, you want to go to the class.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions?
If you don't know, Mr. Kruger is a science teacher and he would love to talk about science.
Oh, well, next
Anytime.
time we have science.
So if you're
One
invited.
thing that I would like you to possibly do is talk to the teacher that we had come in with a human body system. It's not Project Lead the Way. Help me, someone. It's the science. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the pathway.
That program will give you a lot of different projects that you can do that you can apply at any age level. And they're already there, they're already put together. It's a great curriculum and we have it now.
Okay,
I don't know.
something to keep in mind.
Yeah, but that has a lot of good stuff for like all your human body systems.
Well, and this year, it's just kind of one day at a time, 1 unit at a time. But next year, I'm like, this is going to be even better because we'll have time to think about it, gather more resources. It'll be really awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Mark,
I would echo everything they've said. The difference we see in engagement is night and day. You walk around these classrooms, kids are talking, they're learning, they're discussing, they're using vocabulary words that I don't even know. They are learning so much. And I've given an example. The reading is hard. It is a hard text to read. I had a friend in the office with me, and he needed a little help. And he couldn't read every word, but he had enough knowledge in his head about the vocabulary so he could pick out certain words and understand what he was doing. And he went on to show me the map, drew arrows about Muhammad, where he went and why they split, and the whole history of the Muhammad. And I was like, and it gave him confidence because I said, you know what? Yes, you can't read every word, but you know enough that you could read this because you know the knowledge. You could make that connection between what you know and the words you see on the page. And that was a really cool to see. The units are amazing. The knowledge is incredible. Our teachers similar to what you've done. And in the units, they dress up. They have characters. On Halloween, they're doing body systems, so they made skeletons. They made the whole. It's just amazing what you would see. But like I said, teachers are loving it. It's hard work. They go home every night, probably spend an hour at least or 2 hours going through the new content, but they're loving it. They are loving it, the kids are loving it, and they're just seeing the growth in these kids as readers and in their knowledge. So thank you for letting us do this. It's been great. So I said enough. Let's watch the video and you can hear it directly from some teachers and from kids.
Hi, I like the CTLA curriculum because every single day is like a brand new learning adventure in our classroom. We're able to take what we read the previous days and build upon that each day in the classroom. So we're reading something new, but it connects to what we already read. And that's really exciting for the kids because you can see them making connections and remembering the old stuff and connecting it to the new things that we're learning. We can teach you all kinds of amazing things about polio and its effects on your body. We can tell you all about the Middle Ages and what life was like in medieval Europe. And now we know all about the birth of the Islamic religion. I can tell you I knew nothing about that until we learned about it in our classroom. Now we know that about Muhammad and all the caliphs or the leaders after him and the growth of the Islamic empire over time. So it's just cool because we're learning new information every day, and the kids are able to spew knowledge and explain it and analyze this and connect to it, and it's really fun when you see students doing that in your classroom. Thanks. Okay, class, we're going to show off all our knowledge about the Islamic Empire. So here's your first question. All right, who was the founder of the Islam religion? Who was the founder of the Islam religion? You can say on 3. 1, 2, 3. Muhammad! Oh yeah, okay. I want you to have a quick conversation with your partner. Tell your partner everything you know about Muhammad, starting with when he was born, going up through his life. Okay, go.
So I like that we're learning about the realm because we get to learn things that were from a long time ago that you don't get to learn normally in 3rd grade, but you get to learn them like in high school, but we get to learn them in 3rd grade.
I like CPLA because the kids' tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary is way better than last year, and having the exact same kids from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, I'm able to really compare the differences, and they weren't using these words last year compared to this year.
First year, I was picking flowers with my daughter, and then Hades got her. And then the mirror went looking all night, and she was cramped up. And then Zeus traveled to the underworld and then said, let her go.
I like CPLA because the children are very engaged. It's topics that interest them. Some of them have some experience with some of the topics, so they can add that to the discussion that we have as well. It involves the children with pulling down maps and then locating things. It has checks for understanding throughout the lesson as well. And also even some little brain breaks that gives them a chance. And those are all built in, so teachers don't have to do a lot of extra work. So those are my points, pluses.
Can you tell me the most interesting thing you've learned this year?
That the nervous system is the one that controls your body.
The nervous system controls your body. Okay, what about you, Aubrey?
I think it's really cool that we're learning about something that was 2,500 years ago.
Okay, what's that?
The Rome.
About Rome.
Maybe it's better because one reason we may not lose the childhood because you needed the plague and
I just want to brag on my kids, 3rd grade. I have never seen such great writing in all of my 23 years as what they are showing me today. They're able to write a topic sentence, 3 good reasons supporting that topic sentence, and a concluding sentence. And it is just wonderful.
Okay.
Any other questions for him? Chance?
Glad to see Rebels killing it.
Right.
Good job. Thank you.
Now's an opportunity for the public to speak on any agenda item if they would like to. If there's anyone in there would like to speak on any agenda item. Next, the minutes from the last meeting were sent to you. You had an opportunity to review them. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, entertain a motion to accept the previous minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Harris makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jeremy, second. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have reports. Superintendent?
Okay, thank you. The first item that I want to report on is we returned Friday afternoon from the HEC conference, which is Hoosier Educational Computer Coordinators of Indiana. There were 9 of us from West Noble that went to this conference. Here are 8 of them and the cameraman, which is me. So Terry Kruger, high school teacher, and she does a lot to help us with technology integration in the classroom at all levels. Sarah Wilson, Elise Stoops, and Christy, this is a good test for me. Christy Hammond, Mike Berkey, Mike Weimer, who's at the middle school doing coaching and a lot of technology help as well. Doug Carbaugh, Jared Lemon, and then myself. And this conference started as basically a 3-day conference, or we were gone 3 full days last week down in Indianapolis, and it was excellent. Looking at technology and how we can use technology in the education process. There was a lot on literacy. They had sessions there on CKLA and how technology can aid in that. I went to one on high ability learners that's listed there, the first one, and how we differentiate for our students. Sometimes we think of you have students at all ranges in your classroom, and you kind of teach to the middle. Well, what do you do with the kids that are struggling? And Miss Hannah did a nice job of talking about that. What do you do with the kids that came in with all of those skills? Can you differentiate up? And how can technology help us with that? And so that was excellent. Lots of sessions on artificial intelligence. We're doing a study with several staff throughout this school year on artificial intelligence and what that means for us. One thing I took away from it is we need to be on the front end of this. We need to have some policies and procedures. We need to have some guidance. Right now it's kind of the Wild West, and we need to lead well in this area. And so it was excellent. Lots of different ways that we can use education, and a lot of really excellent tools where we can teach our staff, our administrators, and even our students how to use AI effectively and how to use it well. So this is just a sample. There were hundreds of sessions. We spread out. We tried to gather as much as we could. We took notes. We shared emails. We shared websites and ideas that came from each of these sessions. It was just a great opportunity to collaborate with this group and see how a lot of them are in the background. They're not in front of a classroom necessarily or leading the charge, but without technology, our jobs would be much more difficult. And so it was just a good connection for me to be with this group and to see what's coming and how we can be on the leading edge of that instead of trying desperately to catch up. Questions about that?
So are we pretty good on technology wise? I mean, as far as where we're at on technology?
I think so. I think we're in a great spot. Mike has done a great job leading that. I think we have a good history of, I would say we have a very balanced approach to technology. I don't know that West Noble has ever jumped on the bandwagon right off the bat on every new thing that comes down the pike, or just got a bunch of technology just for the sake of that thing. And so I remember going back to Jan Lehman, always asked the question, how is this going to improve the learning process? And what is this going to do that we couldn't do with a whiteboard or a chalkboard or paper and pencil? And so I think West Noble has an excellent history of asking those questions about before we just embrace a technology to figure out why we need this and why this would enhance the learning process as opposed to maybe distract from it. So I think we're in a good spot, and we need to stay in that sweet spot.
Any other questions?
Building projects update. This will go pretty quick. They're hanging the roof, metal up in the weight room behind the school. These were sent to me last week. I didn't take these. So the metal is up, ready for the roof. And hopefully, again, we're hoping to get that closed in before the snow flies and be able to finish that throughout the winter. We added a ADA parking lot behind the bleachers at the football field. This was the last piece that was keeping me up at night. We want to make sure that our facility is safe for all of our patrons. And so this was installed last Friday morning before the sectional final football game. And so we're glad to see that piece. It's going to get lined this week with ADA parking spots and be ready for track season. So I was happy to see that come together sort of unexpectedly here at the end of the season. We also spent some time with our administrators and a couple board members out at the Owens property, looking through their house and going through a little bit of an emotional handoff from them, walking away from their home of 40 plus years. It was just a really neat opportunity to see that property and walk that with Linda and Keenis and hear some stories and find the boundary markers and all the things that are buried. The final piece was we were all looking for this one brick that marks where the cap of their septic system is, and it took us about 6 or 7 minutes out there. Yeah. So we tried. It's got a mark. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't that easy to see. We marked it a little heavier. So apparently that's a key piece of information that every homeowner that has a septic system needs to know. So it's just been good it's just been a good process, and I was thankful to spend that time. It was a beautiful day, and that final handoff of the property to West Noble. Any questions about any of that?
Question.
Yes.
Are we doing an official survey of that property?
Did we have an official survey of that property? I think to buy it, we had to have that done. And when we were out there, we saw recent markers.
Probably when they appraised it.
Yep. Yep.
We have done it.
Yep. There was a question that came up this week. We wanted some feedback on the cell phone policy that was implemented. The biggest changes were at our middle school and high school. So I asked Mrs. Nine and Mrs. Bradley if they would share briefly update on the new cell phone policy, how that's going from staff and student perspective. So if you would like to come up here and share briefly about that, that would be great.
I was gonna say I need to stand up because we have a lot of students in the room and I'm gonna talk about them and I forgot they were gonna be here. So. Not talking about you like you're not in the room. I'll just go first because ours was not as big a change as the middle school, but the policy this year is that those are kept in their locker. I know the teachers love it. It was the teacher's idea. That's no question. You had a lot of good comments from teachers that they have less distraction. We have seen the number of phones turned in because they're taken in class go down significantly. So we know on the teacher side it's working. I did send a survey out to the students to see what they think about it. I shared this with Mrs. Bradley. It was cracking me up. Sorry, kids, but a couple of things were just funny to me. One is how quickly they returned the survey. I barely even advertised it. We got 400 answers right away. I think they had this great hope that I was doing it because we were going to change the policy. So I'm sorry to disappoint. It was not the intent, but I'm really glad we got all those answers. And then the first question was, has it been difficult for you to leave it in your locker? So of the 400 kids that took it, 40% said, yes, I hate the new policy. That's not too bad. That's actually not a huge group of the high school. 37% said no, it has not been difficult, and 21% said yes, but it's not that bad. So most of the students said, no, it's not difficult, or no, it's not that bad. The other thing that cracked me up was some of their answers, and not making light of teenage troubles, but about half of them were about how they don't like to go to walk back to put it in their locker. And so it's like, if that's the worst problem you have in your day, it's not that bad. You probably have stuff that's harder than that, but they are saying that like they'll forget after lunch or might cause them to be tardy. So they're having, and the year before that or 2 years before that, we required that their backpacks were in their locker. So they've had to learn how to quickly, with 5 minutes, drop that stuff off. And a lot of the comments were, I want to go check my phone and I only have 5 minutes. So it's like, yeah, that's, that they don't like it. I get that. But another one was a more serious one, and that was that a lot of them said, I am concerned if something happens, I won't know. If something happens with my family, if there's an emergency. And so I do think that's something we can address in enrichment. How do we get a hold of a student if there is an emergency, a family emergency? If there's an emergency in the school, we don't want all of the students on their phone. It can shut down a cell tower. And so I think those are things that we as adults know and the students don't necessarily. So I think that's a good piece from this that we can educate them on. And we don't want families sharing through a cell phone message in the middle of class an emergency. The teacher doesn't know, the office doesn't know, the kid isn't supported, they don't know how to get out of class. We've had it happen before. So it is better if it does come through the office and they have some support if something like that happens. So I will address that. And then the last question I asked them was if they felt like they wanted UT. I asked if they could concentrate better. And 17% said yes, and 30% said sometimes. So half the kids who took this said, yes, I can concentrate better at least sometimes, which I think is what the teachers are seeing, and that's a pretty big deal. And then I said, do you want to get UT? Is that more important to you now because you would have free time on your phone? And most of them said no. It was about half and half, but I think for those kids, they were already had reasons. So it's not more motivation, they were already motivated to try to get UT. So this didn't really add anything to it. They just want that freedom. So it's the high school.
Joe's got some questions.
Yes, go ahead.
You said that students wanted to go to their locker during class to check their phone. Have you noticed an influx in tardies?
So
that may be related to that?
We have really hit the tardies hard this year. So our numbers have gone down, but that could be because we're meeting with parents sooner and we're putting consequences in earlier. So I haven't seen the number of tardies go up.
And my other question is, I believe there was an exemption, like for medical reasons or whatever. Have you noticed like unreasonable?
We haven't had any new requests.
Good.
So we've had 2 to 3 each year, but I don't know of any new ones.
Great. Thank you.
Can you cover what happens if they violate the policy? What?
So first time, well, teachers can the first time give the student a warning and put it on their desk and say you can have it at the end of the period. But after that, if it's taken, it comes to the office and the parent has to pick it up that day. Second offense, we keep it 3 weeks. It's a long time. The first offense that comes to the office, the parent signs that they understand it will be kept for 3 weeks. And we very, very rarely get it a second time. Kids have meltdowns when their parents sign that first paper. They really do. So then they are very careful to leave it in their locker because they can't imagine not having it for 3 weeks. So that's pretty effective.
That's scary.
So one of the exemptions would be for students who use to read their diabetic monitor.
Yes, that's probably our most common exemption would be that one. Or sometimes they'll have a heart monitor that it reads to.
Yeah. You can share with them at some point in time. You would appreciate leaving that in the locker at some point in your life. That's a minute that
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, so the middle school is a little bit different because our policy is their phones are off and in their locker from 8:30 to 3:20. They do not get it during the passing periods or lunch. And from the admin staff perspective, it's been amazing. We have loved it. Staff responded today, and of the teachers that responded, 35 of them responded. 100% feel that the students are more engaged and concentrating in class because they're not worried about their phones, which is what we were going for. From the admin side of it, we've had way fewer, probably less than 5, where they've been turned into the office where they have to be picked up. Last year at this time, we were probably close to 30. So it's been a huge, huge drop, and we're seeing the positives on the teacher side. Kids are very similar at the middle school compared to the high school in terms of how they feel about the policy. I also think the middle schoolers were thinking I was going to change the policy by getting their response. 471 kids responded at the middle school this afternoon within 10 minutes. So they were very eager to answer the survey questions. I asked very similar questions than Amanda did. Has it been difficult for you to leave your cell phone in your locker? Yes. I changed it. I didn't want them to say hate so I really dislike the new policy. That was 33.1%. But so about 67% of our building felt like it's manageable. The no was actually the biggest at 47.1%, that they didn't think it was that big of a deal to have their phones off and in their lockers. The responses, again, very comical, very, very worried about what happens if somebody has to get a hold of them. We have reminded them that parents can call in, we will get messages to them. They also don't know their parents' phone numbers. So if they have to call their parents and they don't have their cell phone, how am I going to go about doing that? We can look it up and give it to them, but they're like, my phone tells me all the numbers, which is just new for them. And they really miss having it at lunch recess time. They feel like that was something they could do instead of going outside to recess or playing in the gym. They could get on their phones and do YouTube or whatever they're doing. But that's where we saw the biggest issue with phones, was at lunch, where they would use them inappropriately. So we have not missed it at lunch, but the kids really miss it at lunch. And then do the kids feel like they can concentrate better without having their phones? And that was pretty even split, about 33% for yes, no, and sometimes. So some of them were just concerned about what they were missing on their phones than what was going on in class. But overall, it's gone really well. I'm super pleased with it. The biggest thing that probably surprised me was we've had 0 parents complain or be upset that we've not allowed them to have their phones at school. So it's been great. Yes, sir.
1 year ago, could a middle schooler have had their phone in their possession and on in the classroom?
Yes. But if it was seen, like if it was out and a teacher saw it, it came to the office. But they could have it with them. Any other questions?
Any consequences are the same?
We do not have the 3-week policy that the high school has. So anytime it's brought to the office, it's parent pickup. Our second offense results in a half day of ISS, but we don't keep the phone. The parent still picks it up. And sometimes parents make the decision to leave it at the school for 3 weeks, but that's the parent deciding that and not us. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, with the parents, do you guys let the parents know if there's ever, and I'm thinking aloud kind of right now, if there's an emergency, I didn't do this, and I would right now. If there's an emergency, what should you do as a parent? Really, I would rather the principal want you to call the office, because we can have resources ready, go get the kid, have a guidance counselor with us, maybe. I mean, and that's something that I think in this day and age, I'd go over in my parent meetings if there's ever a meeting, but I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud.
I don't think we have explicitly said that, and we also haven't had it happen until the last few years. But we have had some pretty serious news broken to a kid over a phone in class, and we didn't know it. The teacher didn't know it. So I would say it's probably becoming necessary, but we haven't needed to.
something just to think about.
Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Last, we spent this first year with the marching band. They had a great season. We may get an update on that at some point, but we would rent each time a U-Haul trailer. So they're pulling into these competitions with other schools with these really nice wrapped, logos and big Super Duty trailers. And we came with a U-Haul, which was fine, and they were happy to have it. But one of the parents, Walter Barnes' family, had a trailer that they bought to move some things, and then at the end of that, decided that they would donate this brand new trailer to West Noble High School for the marching band. And our current board policy, and I think it should remain, and we need to actually do a better job with this, is any donations, gifts, and grants of a certain dollar amount, of which this is higher than, needs to be accepted by the board. So we haven't done anything with this yet. We haven't titled it or insured it or anything like that. It's just been dropped here within the last week. But I would ask the board if we would be willing to accept this gift from the Barnes family for the marching band to use in future years. And they said they've given us permission to do whatever we want with it. We can wrap it, we can paint it, or put logos on it, that sort of thing. But this is ours. They want to give it to the school in memory and honor of their son, Dominic, who died earlier this year in an accident. And this was their gift to West Noble. And so the last piece of my report is to let you know that we have received this, and I would like permission from the board to accept this gift and make it part of the West Noble Marching Band program.
You've heard the request from Dr. Lau. If there have any other further comments on the trailer? If not, entertain a motion for the board to accept the
I'll make
trailer.
that motion.
Paul makes a motion. To have a second?
A second.
John Schwartz, second. All those in favor?
Thank you.
How does it compare in size to what you were renting?
Bigger.
Bigger, great.
And the rented U-Haul was tight. So this should be perfect.
So they got a truck able to pull it?
So we do have trucks that can pull a trailer. That'll be the next step of the process, is to figure out when that happens, what truck we use. We would like it to be pulled by a school vehicle. We have trucks available on the weekend that if somebody has some training that we could potentially use. But like I said, we haven't had that conversation until we knew that it was going to be something that's accepted. So the plan is to figure that out in the next 6-8 months until the next marching band season.
Any other questions on the band? There's nothing on the consent agenda, so we'll move down to the personnel agenda. Everybody's had a chance to review the personnel agenda. Any questions on any of the listings? Not entertaining motion to accept the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Jeremy makes a motion. To have a second.
I'll second it.
Carrie second. All those in favor? Motion carried. Tom, would you like to introduce your new softball coach?
I would. She is a 2020 graduate of Central Noble High School. You know, as an athletic director, I get an opportunity to watch teams come through here all the time, and I just kind of admire certain leadership styles and things like that. But this is Madison Bremer, and she played soccer and she played softball
And
basketball. And I just remember watching her back in the day, she was a goalkeeper for Central Noble, and then she was a really talented pitcher for Central Noble. But I just remember watching the leadership that she would display on the field as far as helping the other kids and just kind of coaching them on the field. And I remember thinking one day setting up at the soccer field, I was like, man, she is going to be a great coach someday. Never thought we'd get her over here. So I'm glad. Her dad's the athletic director over at Central Local. Does a great job over there. And when we had our position come open, she had reached out and was interested. And she's just starting. She's doing student teaching right now. Right now at the primary school at Central Noble. And so she's kind of getting her feet on the ground. And I told her I just wanted to wait a little bit and make sure this is something she wanted to bite off, because it's a big job. And she came in, she interviewed, she just knocked it out of the park. She's got all the qualities we were looking for in a head coach. We're going to miss Kaylee Warble. She's got some other priorities going on right now, but Madison's going to do a great job, and welcome her and let her.
Madison, now your opportunity to go with the speech.
You want me, where do you want me, like, go me on? I'll take the podium, don't worry.
Watch those cheers.
I know why I keep kicking them, I don't know what's going on. Hi, I'm Madison Bramer, I go by Maddie though, so, I mean, you can call me Maddie. I graduated from Central Noble in 2020. I gotta say, I walked in and was really intimidated by all the red, white, and blue. I'm used to burgundy and white, so it was a big jump. I'm currently student teaching at Central Noble Primary in Wolf Lake, Indiana, in a first grade classroom. So my friend's teaching CKLA. You were talking about the human body. That was my whole life. Yeah. Building bed. Yeah, we just got over that too. Yeah. So yeah, been a journey in that. I'm currently at the primary, and I'm going to graduate in December from Grace with a degree in elementary education. And I plan on taking a maternity leave position at Central Noble Elementary in 3rd or 4th grade. I don't know yet, but I love softball. I'm really excited to be part of West Noble, even though my dad's been giving me some crap for it, but we'll get over it. So yeah, just really excited.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is usually
Riley.
Yeah, I think my brother. Yeah.
And this is usually where we give you the opportunity if you want to leave or stay.
Well, I gotta get shirts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next, I have an individual action item. It's appointed Chief Finance and Operations Officer as a purchaser for West Noble. Since Barb is going to be
Retiring.
that we need to appoint Mr. McDaniel. Any questions on what that entails, or he basically looks over all the bills and has to say so, and all that, same as Barb has been doing. If not, entertain a motion to appoint Mr. McDaniels as the chief financial. Kraus makes motion, I will second.
Second.
Paul makes a second. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Next 10 is information items only. Looks like we have a lot of homework. We'll talk about the calendar.
Yeah, I'll review a few of those in a minute. But first thing is our calendar committee has met twice now in the last month. And this is quite a group. Maybe too many to make a big decision, but we're getting through it and it's been good. Lots of feedback. We started with 3 different versions of the calendar. We ended up with this one. And it is basically, except for a few things because of semesters, the jump to semesters from the elementary and the middle school, that we won't have to tie those flex days to trimester breaks, things like that. So other than that, start dates, spring break, Christmas break, those types of things are all corresponding dates. And so this is what it's looking like at this point. We also talked about and put out there, what would it be like to have a 2-year calendar? So we would know 2 years forward what to expect for breaks and school start, school ending, and all of that. And so we went ahead and did corresponding dates. from the 25-26 proposal to the next school year and came up with this one. So this is, we're putting this in front of the board. They've had it for a couple days since I sent it to them in their packet. But we're looking for feedback on this. The principals and the calendar committee people are sharing it out. It's open for anybody with West Noble email. You can look up calendar proposal and find these calendar tabs that we've worked on. There's nothing hidden here. We're just trying to find a good calendar that is predictable for staff and for athletics and for all our different programs. And so this is what we've come up with to this point. So I would entertain any questions that you have on that. I would guess we'll probably meet one more time as a calendar committee. We'd like to bring this back at the next meeting here in November and hopefully have this approved so we can publish it and get it out there.
So are we etched in stone with the spring break as far as that, the first full week of April, as we had in the past? Is that
I will say nothing is etched in stone, but the recommendation from the calendar committee is that we stick with the corresponding dates. And Tom and Jean would probably be able to speak to that the best. I will also say, so there's an athletic reason to stay with that week. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And it's also the week that corresponds with East Noble and our impact. It'd be their second week of spring break is actually our spring break week. And so if we would go to the next week, that would be just more conflict with nearly 70 impact students at the high school. So no, it's not in stone or concrete.
I appreciate it.
But it is pretty
Any
solid.
other questions on the calendar?
Yeah, what's the status of Good Friday? What historically have we done?
Okay, good question. So we're addressing that. Our current calendar, Easter and spring break were really separated. So in our current calendar, it's not a day off school in the calendar that we're in right now. And we kind of knew that going in. Next year, if you'll notice,
falls within spring break.
yeah. So Easter and Good Friday, sorry, where am I at here? Is April 3rd is Good Friday, Easter's on the 5th. I will tell you, one of the things that we discussed is one of our 2 snow makeup days is May 4th. It's that green day down there on May 4th. One of the things that was thrown out there is what if we move that to and make it just an extension of spring break and put it right after Easter. So you would have Easter on the 5th and then a day off school on the 6th. So it would be a 6-day spring break. Hang on to that thought because the next year, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. The next year, we have Good Friday is on March 26th. And that would be the beginning of spring break. So we would have a 6-day spring break tied to Easter and Good Friday. And so that was one of the recommendations. We decided that came up pretty late in the meeting. So we just said, let's just leave it and see what feedback we get on that. So one option is to have a makeup day late in the school year just to catch any fluke that's out there. And the other option for next school year would be to tag that with our spring break and just have one snow makeup day and have a 6-day spring break tied with Easter.
I'll be in the minority, but I feel like Good Friday is being used as a pawn that we'll have it off when it's convenient, not when it isn't. And I don't know, I'd be in favor of sticking to 5 school days. Makes for a 9-day break. If you try to tie more days to it, if you may or may not have school, you're gonna have so many people that are already counting it as a set day off.
Yeah, and those were things we discussed, so.
Any other comments? Jeremy?
Do we need 2 full weeks off at Christmas?
Yes. We didn't, that never came up. But I would be open to what you're thinking there.
I'm just asking, but it seems like we have a ton of time off at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And then the kids go a long time without a break.
The teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens, especially I think at our school, is that people take more than 2 weeks. There's a lot of our community that will travel out of the country over Christmas break. And I think to shorten that would make it even more difficult for those families to visit family. So that didn't come up in the calendar committee. We can have that conversation if you think that that's, what would be your recommendation? So let's just look at 25, 26 school year. What would?
I really don't have one other than we hear about testing and the kids need to be here.
Yeah.
So if testing is that important, in my mind, 2 weeks out, instead of sprinkling here and there, the retention would be greater. And it would give them a break from school in the long run when they don't have any break.
I will tell you, one of the things that we talked about, and we've gone back and forth on this, if you'll see, January 12th is a staff day, and that's the beginning of the second semester, January 13th. So that's a break from what we've typically done, although when we were on trimesters, the trimester would continue through the break. So we've done that before. So the way we built it here and for the next year, the 26, 27, what it does is balances those semesters so that you have, like you said, you've got all of that, those 90 days of a first semester and 90 days of a second semester. If you don't do that, you lose 5 days on both ends. So you end up with an 85 semester and a 95 semester in the spring.
I know we talk an awful lot about what's important for the students, but just as important, what's important to the staff. Is it nice having those 2 weeks off to reset and get ready for the next round? Or would you rather have more continuity with a little shorter break?
I don't leave town at Christmas time, so my opinion would be different than people who travel.
But is it nice? We have some teachers, administrators that have been here for a long time. Is it nice having?
We didn't used to have 2 weeks.
Didn't used to have them?
No, when I started teaching here, we only had a week and a half.
Okay.
I mean, it is a long haul from January to spring break, which used to be the beginning of April without anything. That's a long haul.
I just didn't know how many of you need a break.
But I will say from the calendar committee perspective, we were trying to put in some things in the spring. And when you get such heavy testing from the state, and you've got RETA testing, and you've got iRead testing, or iLearn testing, and all the different ones, and then you get up into the high school ones, there's just middle school, high school, there's a lot of different testing dates, and it's hard to bypass all of those to try to get off some time. That's one of the things we found as a challenge.
Thank you.
I can tell you, I like it. It's the middle of the year, got filters changed. Custodians are off 4 out of those 10 days. So it's time to get everything done when nobody's here. So it comes in handy that way.
It's good to know. Thank you.
I'm a teacher too, and I do enjoy the whole 2 weeks off.
But I find that what I end up doing that last week is looking at curriculum and looking at things. I mean, so I'm still doing schoolwork, but it's on my own time and it's in my own pace. And
But
I
again,
don't
it
feel
gives you
rushed.
an opportunity to be productive on your own end.
It's a more of a relaxing way to get yourself back into the groove.
Yeah, that's.
Because when you come back in and you're full bore, but I'm like her, when you come in, I'll come into school during break, but it's a relaxation time. It's like I'm getting my head back in the game. And like they said, testing, from the minute we come back in January, I mean, you feel like that's all you're gonna be getting done. So I think it's harder in that springtime to have days off. Plus the weather is crazy, let's face it. Some years it's good, some years it's awful.
Yeah.
And then we play catch up with the weather when we're doing that. Even though we have the computers, that's great, but you're still not in the classroom. Second everyone.
Yes. I've never thought about not having 2 weeks, so that was like I don't know.
You have a little panic attack over there.
Take the heat off me, Jeremy. Thanks a lot.
Drive home the long way.
Okay. Any other questions on the calendar? Or any other comments?
We will take that feedback, we'll meet again, and we'll bring back any revisions at the next board meeting. So you've got it. You can reach out anytime with comments and suggestions.
Next, we have on the West Louisville High School Unified Track.
Amanda, will you and maybe Tom come forward and share with us about Unified Track?
So, Unified Track is a program that is mostly for applied skills students. Well, there are different sports. Unified, they have football, they have bowling, I think they have bocce ball now, and track, and so flag football. So it's usually an applied skills student, and then they have a partner. So I think that's where the term unified came from, is they're working together, but the applied skills student would be the one who is competing. And so Mrs. Duncan has really wanted to bring it to West Noble. They had it at Central Noble, and when the applied skills students from Central Noble came to West Noble, Central Noble got rid of the program, and then we were switching teachers, so we haven't brought it back yet. In track, they have it's not all of the events, it's 100-meter dash, 400-meter dash, 4x1 relay, shot put, and long jump. So those would be the what they could compete in. Mrs. Duncan has about 5 students right now that for sure want to do it, and she thinks she probably would have more. And the best part of it is we have a lot of peer tutors in the room with applied skills. So I think for most schools, one of the most difficult steps in the process would be getting their partner that helps them, and we would not have a problem with that. Probably they're going to be fighting over who can do it. Are any of you guys peer tutors in applied skills? Okay. But we have a lot right now. So I did attach in the agenda a sheet that shows the steps to get it started, and we've already gotten quite a ways down in that process. It's getting the teacher on board, finding a coach. Mrs. Duncan would like to do it, finding the student interest, getting the athletic director on board, and the principal, and then basically just applying to do it. So that's really the point that we're at. You can become a champion school, which is pretty cool, and we would probably try to do that in a few years. There's a little bit of fundraising with it, and then there's sort of a whole school initiative with that. That's really neat. So that would be the goal after we get it going for a few years. They would practice a couple of nights a week, and I think there's they recommend like a minimum of 3 events, but there could be more. I know from when I was at Warsaw, they have football and track, and the scheduling part can be the most difficult. But I don't think that will be really difficult for us because there aren't as many schools for us to compete with. So it'll be kind of a smaller schedule, might be more manageable. have anything?
No, you know what, I was just gonna say, and every school that's done this, and when I go to the AD's conferences and I hear the other schools talk about it, everyone is like, it's the best thing you'll do all year. It is so cool. And I am excited, Mrs. Duncan is excited about taking this on and the applied skills. And that's been the biggest piece that we needed. And last year she wanted to, and this year she is like, we are going to do this, whether you like it or not. I think it's awesome. The one thing I want to make sure it's understood, it's not Special Olympics, so we're not doing that. Unified, it's a little bit different. And it used to be you just had to have an IEP, right? But now, what's the quality?
Basically, it's someone that's not on diploma track, I think is what they would say. So like a certificate of completion student would be, and that's usually our applied skills.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing, I think, just to understand that yeah, to get people, to get staff, to get the parents involved, I think will be great for our kids. We celebrate so many great things that we do around this school. Whether it's athletics or anything else as far as theater, arts, band, but I think to celebrate these kids and to help, make them feel a part of it will be really good for West Noble. And it's something I think we're looking forward to continuing if that's the direction everybody decides to go. Thank you.
Is it Mrs. Duncan or your
It's
daughter? Okay.
It's the high school Mrs. Duncan.
Okay.
Although I think the persistence runs in the family.
Haley Duncan. Mrs. Haley Duncan.
Did she coach at Central Noble? Did she coach unified track at Central Noble?
She did not.
She didn't coach it, but I think she had experience with it.
They had another coach already in place there, and she was there, but she didn't.
And then you would need probably some assistance and transportation to events and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
she said maybe one assistant.
Yeah, I think one assistant, and that's one of the things we would eventually need to ask for is probably a head coach and an assistant.
Transportation, there's 5 right now that she has interested, we think could ride the regular shuttle buses home. But there's some are Central Noble, and then that their transportation is on Central Noble, so we have to make sure that we can get that arranged. But
We're looking at having them practice probably 2 times a week, so we're at plus any meets that they would have during the time. So I think it would be a good mix.
Did they have a meet then with a starter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like a regular meet, but it's 5 events, and yeah, we would probably initially jump in with somebody with already made up meets. Like we'd probably jump in with East Noble and DeKalb, different schools that already have unified sports. And here in northern Indiana and actually northeast Indiana, it's been pretty prevalent. I mean, southern Indiana doesn't have a ton of unified teams, but the northern part of the state has quite a few unified teams. But it's a good thing. East Noble does an amazing job at it. They were really good. And Wallasey has one as well. Yeah, in fact, that's another one so pretty cool.
Any other questions? Thank you. Make sure you have all the board policies, all the updated board policies that we're gonna be reviewing.
So this is the final packet.
We've heard that before.
Yeah. They keep coming. We have for 2023, then we'll be all caught up. When I came in a year ago, we were about 4 years behind on these. And so this is the last group of policies that need to be updated. Most of these were based on 2023 legislation. They're things that we're already doing because they're law anyway. Most of those came into effect either July of last year or January 1st. And then it just takes a while for any legislation, any litigation based on those laws and updates to make their way through. So we are updating those policies. These are all based on either federal or state legislation. or case law. And so this should catch us up to the next update after this is from October of 2024. They had a whole almost a year from September 23, and now the next one is 2024. So we should go into 2025 caught up with our board policies, which is quite an accomplishment, and it's been a lot of work. I highlighted a few of it. These are all listed on the public agenda, so you can look up at any of these. I just wanted to highlight a few of these for you. Like one is background checks. Some updates there. It's just standard that part of our background checks. Mandatory curriculum. There's a list, a page or two long, of all the things that we have to teach in school. And these are some updates based on legislation in the state of Indiana last year on reproductive health and human sexuality, like that it can't be taught younger than 4th grade, those types of things. So it's what we've been doing. It's no change to any practice. It's just the policy is catching up with that. The adoption of curricular materials, library materials. We spent a lot of time on this last year. This was law January 1st of 2023 or 2024, sorry. What has to be made public as far as our library materials and curriculum materials. We've been following all of those. We're just making some minor updates to those policies. Adjunct teachers, this is a brand new policy. This is, we don't have any adjunct teachers. I don't know that we ever will, but there may come a time when we need to have an adjunct teacher. And this is mostly going to be in our pathways. So if we would have a teacher, let's say we would start a pathway on athletic training, and there's someone that we want to teach a class or a series of courses for that pathway that is no interest in becoming a teacher. You know, their full-time job is athletic trainer, but they could teach for a period or two a day. The board could, in that situation, say, you are a teacher, you have met the minimum requirements of this field or of being an adjunct, and you could teach these specific courses. Like I said, this is something that a lot of schools around us are using. We haven't started this, and I don't want to use it for very much at all, but I'd like to have that option if we do have a pathway or a program that we want to teach and there's no licensed teacher, but highly qualified individual, like let's say we do a dental hygiene or a dentistry or something like that. We would want highly qualified people, but not interested in getting a teacher's license or an emergency permit. This gives us some flexibility there. Student complaints, privacy, activism, search and seizure, again, all state laws are just technical updates to those policies. Student fees and charges outlines, again, what we can charge for and what we can't charge for. We waited about a year when they took away student textbook fees to, okay, what's left? What can we still charge for as a school? And so this outlines that. Student staff relations, just giving some examples of this is appropriate for students and staff, and this is inappropriate for students and staff, and give some examples of what may be harassment or just not a good professional setting or situation for staff and students to be in. And so I made some selections there that you can look through as a board. The rest of them, Edgar and UGG, are federal financial policy standards dealing with internal controls, conflict of interest, grant management, spending federal funds, travel reimbursement, and property inventory. And so these are just updates to keep us in compliance with all of our finances. And I expect that our new purchasing agent that was just anointed tonight by the board, appointed or anointed, not sure which, will memorize all of those and keep us well within compliance on those. So that's what we're working on as far as policies. If anybody has any questions about those and want to see the drafts or has any specific questions, reach out anytime. It's a lot of information. There's no good way to present all of that. It's pages and pages and pages of policy. So it's not that I'm trying to hide anything. It's just, it's a lot. So if you have specific questions on any of those or any of those that are listed here, just reach out. I'll be happy to show you what's current policy, the recommended changes by our legal advice, and the selections that I've made. A lot of these have options, and the selections that the board has made or the school has made previous to me, and most of that we're just maintaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the board and administrative comments. We'll start with Travis.
I'm good.
Paul?
No.
Joe?
None. He's not here tonight. Gene Teal, excellent man. Watching some basketball yesterday, and he was refereeing. It's great to see him out there teaching the kids. When he sees that they don't understand, he's a pretty good guy. I like Gene, so I wish he was here tonight so I could say that to his face, but
He's officiating down at St. Francis, so.
is he, well, maybe tomorrow you can say he got brought up, so I appreciate that, thank you.
Jeremy? Eric?
Love the curriculum piece today. That makes me happy, it does, because if we can get them to read, all of our problems go way secondary. Not all, but quite a few.
I'd just like to thank all the staff, like Tom and everybody in the student section game together, the football game, and all the pieces that went into place. And there's a lot of people here. I mean, the major staff, everybody come together. It was just a blessing will shine just like they normally do. Also, kudos out to the primary and the elementary for the veterans programs. They make it really clear that our freedom is not free. There's a cost for that, and we respect our veterans. That was awesome how they did that. And it was just neat to say that. And as I always say, less is best.
Good.
Mr. Shepherd, Mr. McDaniels.
Thank you.
Sarah. Tom?
We have our fall awards program on Thursday, and that's at 7. So look forward to celebrating it at the end of the fall, but kind of reiterate, just thanks for getting this fall together. I mean, it's been interesting facility-wise. We have so many people who are so good about helping out. The admin team at the high school is amazing. There's so many people to thank, and but just getting all of it together and being able to do it, whether it's a cross-country meet or whether it's a football game or a soccer game. We always have people that's getting stuff up, and we have some great kids, and it's just been fun watching them compete this fall. So good stuff.
Mrs. Dang? Mrs. Bradley? Mrs. Duncan? Mr. Yoder? Mr. Berkey?
Thank you for letting us go to heck this year. We felt like it was a really good conference. It's good for my staff to kind of get on and see some new things. We do a lot of bonding as well as we probably laughed more than ever this year. So thank you for letting us go. I know it's expensive, but it is definitely worth sending us to this. So thank you.
I don't know the two new administrators, so I go over this way.
Are those things new?
About a year ago.
You're fine. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Travis makes a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Joe Sager, second. All those in favor? We adjourn. Thanks, everybody, for coming.